found you. You've been living with your eyes closed. Awaken. It's there. Take it. It's yours. That was Robert M. Drake. Beautiful chaos. As you can see, that quote probably means something to somebody very special. And we're going to stop yapping and just bring her on in with Jeremy tonight. And I saw that quote on some profile, Christine, and probably one of the sites that you've worked with in the past or whatever. And I said that's phenomenal. And then I got to thinking somewhere else when I was kind of looking around for just the stuff to talk about tonight, and found that picture of and you and a very special person who actually, though I've never met, I've heard you talk to on the phone, and you brought me to tears because you make me think of the man that taught me and my brother Jeremy here to fish. And it's cool. And that's why I think he and I connect so much with you, because of that connection with Paul. And it just hammers us. So I knew the first time we saw that video and when we followed you for a while, that it was like, I had to meet you someday, just because that emotional impact. And at that point in your career, it was something very special. But for me, it wasn't even all about that. It was just knowing that connection, that relationship that you don't just have with your father and, your family and fans, but your Paul. How right off the bat, let's just tell everybody, hey, everybody, this is KRISTINE Fisher. If you're new here or new to kayak bass fishing and you don't know who KRISTINE Fisher is, she's one of the best anglers in the world. Now, everybody will put a title on it. Oh, best woman angler. No, no. She's one of the best anglers in the world. And if you follow her on Instagram, it's Midwest Fisher Gal. And you can, she documents her travels and her life on socials to share it with everybody. And it's really kind of cool. But I got to start out and ask. We try to come up with different questions, and my first one for you is, when or what memory do you have of the first fish that you caught that you were kind of hooked, that started this whole journey you've been on?
Oh boy, I think there's pictures of me when I was as young as like fish and fishing. I mean, I was really little. My whole family fished all the time. I don't remember, unfortunately, but I have some very poignant memories of remember catching a carp with my paw in our city lake, when I was probably 7 or 8. I remember that pretty well. I remember catching up in Minnesota, in the Boundary Waters where we grew up. I was probably like, I think, catching tulipy on up there in Minnesota too. Ever since I can remember, I was brought into a fish. Loved it. I really don't. I wish there was that one really cool fish that's had me hooked, but rather than just that one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it was something. It seems like it hooks all of us. And like you said, whether we remember it or not, you sometimes get impressions and bodies of water and places you've been, and or even just being outdoors, especially with people that you like being with. And it's funny because a lot of those things, a lot of people don't realize it's fishing is such a family event, or can be, just depending on who likes to be out with the bugs and the mud and the water and the puddles and wading in the creeks and throwing mud at each other, and chasing bluegill, crappie, bass, whatever. But it's funny how, to me, and especially in our family, fishing kind of binds us, and it's just something we love to share. But it gets kind of goofy at sometimes too, because you get into little contests with each other. I remember Jeremy and I would get on our bikes after school and we ride down to the river or this slough that we would, and it didn't matter what it was. Oh, I got the most crappie. I got the most bluegill. I got the biggest bass, whatever it was. But I mean, it's funny how you kind of bind and do stuff like that or bond, I guess is more the term. And like I said, just yeah. And I want you to tell this story about that phone call you made that day, and I posted in the video, but you yeah, I have people in the chat, talking about musky fishing and stuff like that up too, because I know that's big up north. Yeah, it's not something we have common down here in Indiana. I think there are some planted here and there, but it's nothing I've ever landed into. But, growing up or even getting started, how did you end up where you just happened to start fishing so much that you thought, hey, tournament things, that kind of lifestyle or something that you wanted to get into? How did you even get started into fishing tournaments? Was this a boat thing, or just did you start in a kayak, or how did you kind of get kicked off there?
Well, growing up, my family fished family walleye tournaments growing up, and it was all family. Like there was some competition. There were some guys that had rabbit family at all. It would be, my dad and I versus and then my grandpa, vice versa, or my mom would fish them too with us. And so I remember doing that a couple of times, for several years. But like I said, I've always loved to fish, and then I just fished recreation most of my life until I want to say I was like 25 or 26, 27. It was like my late 20s when I was working at an archery shop and signed for a local kayak fishing tournament. And I had never even heard of anything like that. I said, and I had kayak fished recreationally before, and $100 box store kayaks that my clients would have. I used to teach Pilates as well, like private legs, or take them places, or the farm ponds and kayak fish. So kind of neat. So I jumped in my first local tournament, ended up doing really well. It's a lot of fun. I like the people. I like the competition. Like, let's see a couple more of these. So I started at the grassroots level with our club back in Nebraska. We only had one club. From there, started qualifying for some bigger tournaments by having some success, and history.
It's Jeremy. Doesn't that sound familiar? I work on the Navy installation, and so Jeremy and it's got this one little lake at the bottom of it loaded with monster bass, right? And so we stopped fishing anywhere public because I'd go pick him up, bring him on base, and we were the same way. Had these, one blue, one red, sit in, that would float us, and we did that for years. Actually, we did that all the way up until COVID hit. And we had no clue out on everywhere else in the world, people were fishing in kayaks, let alone in tournaments. It wasn't until COVID hit and they kicked us off base that, I started venturing out back onto kind of public waters again. And we're like, there's other people out here in kayaks, and there's like 20 people over here. What are they doing? And that's how we kind of discovered that it was a thing. It was so weird. We never cared because we were just fishing and chasing big fish. But yeah. Jeremy, what do you kind of remember them days, don't you?
Oh yeah. It was such a drastic change from being in a big bass boat and running to getting in this thing. I flipped it, I don't know how many times, lost rods, reels, but I kept going back.
Yeah, we learned how to kayak fish the hard way because I don't know, like you said, I think I broke at least 2 rods the first time I tried to sit into one, and then it rolled on me, and then it was just like, oh, the water's deeper here than I thought it would be. Oh my gosh. So when you started doing fish, what kind of led you into even capturing that and starting up a YouTube channel?
Goodness, that, I think, how long I've been YouTube, 3 or 4 years, probably 3 years more seriously. And when I first started getting pretty serious about it, to protect myself, and I had, I was having a lot of success, and I had people that doubted that I had, and granted, I wish I knew now what I didn't know then, is that there are trolls out there that'll make comments without even knowing anything about you, who you are. But I had comments saying I had comments saying she can't be doing that on her own. There's someone helping her. There's someone helping her. She's not along those lines. And that was so, I mean, I had male dominated fields since for as long as I can remember. And I've always got questions like that. Working in sales and hard lines, I'd have guys ask for a only female up there that worked. I guided back home. I guided fishing trips and asked my clients how the bite was. And they're like, oh, she's the guide. And they're like, what? You know, just that. I've always felt that kind of that stigma that, you know, women don't competitively on their own. I was like, well, I'm going to start filming I actually started it out of a fuel for just to prove to people that is on my own. I'm going to talk them through where I'm fishing, why I'm fishing, where I'm fishing, and I'll show them when I pick up a different bait. This is my thought process here. Here's basically prove that, you know, in my videos, I usually find areas where I'm the only person around anglers near me. So I'm not fishing with anybody, you know. So that's just you know, I wanted to shut people up. And then later I learned it kind of a funny, I shouldn't have wasted my time on that. You know, people are going to say stuff regardless. You prove anything to those people. And I didn't have to prove anything. But what was cool is, and now it's actually doing really well. So I'm actually thankful that those guys just accusing me of not catching my own fish kind of inspired me to start a YouTube channel.
That's awesome.
It's funny you say that, because I remember and again, you know, Jeremy and I used to fish boat tournaments decades ago and got out of it when we, you know, raising kids and doing other things, and, you know, came back to fish, you know, I don't know, probably 10 years ago. But it's funny. So we're kind of new into the whole, you know, KBF and, you know, all the tournament type stuff. Just, we started with like state challenges and Heroes on the Water, you know, kind of just having fun and doing it kind of like that. But it's funny, as I started, you know, it's like reading different Facebook groups and this and that. It still amazes me. Like when you talk about trolls and whatnot, it's like, I remember seeing these comments in the KBF thing and about, you know, the national championship is getting ready to start up, and people were talking about like Russ and Cody, and you know, oh, they're gonna be, you know, driving up and picking their fish up out of their cages, or, you know, whatever, this and that. And the fact that Jeff Little tagged along with them guys and, you know, followed them up the river and basically showed how they were fishing, it's just like completely shut up and shut down that garbage that is actually coming out of people's mouths. I mean, I guess having dealt with, like, you know, Bass Pro stuff on the boat side, I guess I really didn't realize it was on the kayak side some too. But it's like, can't y'all just shut up and fish? I just enjoy the mastery and the skill that you see coming out of you guys when you're out performing at the top of your game. I mean, I personally love the fact, I wish we could almost go MLF style, where we can have, you know, camera boats chase you guys around everywhere you go, just because I love really seeing cool everything that you do. And Jeremy, you actually had a question coming along those lines, didn't you?
Yeah. How do you handle the camera boats during the tournament?
I like, there's always like the curse of the camera boat. And every time I usually, my day just goes right down. I'll fish that TOC when Shane came up. He did see me catch my fifth and final fish, three over 18 or 19 inches. That would have had me, I thought would have won me. That my fifth smaller fish would have won, but I kept breaking off and losing fish. And I just said, one of these days, I'm gonna have a killer day on camera. I love that the camera boat comes up on me. Sometimes I'm actually not gonna break off a big fish or lose a fish on camera. I'm gonna land it. I don't know. It's I like it, and I wish, like you said, I think it would be so cool. boats out there on the anglers at all times, because like you noted, a lot of my very time with Cody, Russ, G, obviously, Scotch, Stewie, Riser, that group is incredible. I've watched a lot of commercials and stuff with the elite bass pros, the MLF pros, and some of my friends out there, like, I think I'm a good angler, but some of those guys are just on a different level. Guillermo, Cody, and Russ. So if we could get camera boats out there, so all these people that are talking this or this, it's like, no, these guys are on a truly different level. Be that, and just to showcase the talent that we have in the sport.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing when, you know, just the skill. It's like the fish whisperers. They just know, you know, they just know. I mean, it's funny, but a lot of those guys really put in the work. It's
No,
funny
they really
talking
do.
to different people so that and I think a lot of people just don't get it. They've either, you know, I'm an old fart, so I mean I get it. I know people that outside of live scope electronics and all of that, they just catch fish. I mean, you can put them out there in a regular you can put them out there in a canoe, a paddle, and a fishing pole, and they're going to go catch fish. I mean, that's just part of it. Everything else that we've got with the modern techniques and you know, forward facing and motors and all that, yeah, sure, it's making their lives a little bit easier. But at the end of the day, the folks who know how to fish are going to go catch fish. I mean, through all the conditions, it doesn't matter what state or whatever. If you know, you know. It's just one of those funny things. I put a thing out on Instagram today asking people to submit questions to you, and one comes in from Sandwich Searcher, who's a buddy of ours who this will be his first year. He fished with us a couple of times last year when we were out doing some Catch 22 challenges on the river. And he immediately got hooked. He wants to try some of the local derbs with us this year. And his question for you was, where to go? One tip that you would have for your first year tournament angler, or as he says, fisher human.
I like that. That's easy. That I could have given myself on my first year fishing tournaments. And what I tell everybody is don't be afraid to blank. Don't be too hard. Remember that if you take it too seriously, that's how you're going to steal your joy of fishing. You know, we all like to do well and compete and do all this, but man, my first couple of years, I put some precedented pressure on myself that was so unnecessary. And I wish I can't, but I learned from it. And now I don't put that type of pressure on myself to do well and be successful. As long as you're out there and you're enjoying what you're doing, being on the water and all, I promise that's so much more important than what the leaderboard says.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of our thing too, because we weren't trying to get too serious into the stuff. Except for, you know, in the state challenge in May, we know that's the one that if you do really good in, you can qualify for the NC. So we put everything into May. I mean, I took probably off 2 weeks of work just to, we know what numbers, we know where we got to finish in the state. In Indiana, man, we got a lot of hammers here.
Oh,
and so
you do, yeah, absolutely.
You can't just, you know, you're out there with Matt Kiefer, Glenn Landstrom, Brian Sparks, Mike Elsa, you name them, Adam Murray. I mean, there's so many hammers here. And it's like, we looked at the thing and it's like, bro, we got to finish in the top 15 this month to do it. And we both caught fish on the last day to squeak us into 12th and 15th. So that got us what we needed.
That's awesome.
But I mean, it made it so much fun because our big thing is we were going to come anyway. We wanted to come down and just see how it all goes and, you know, meet people like we did with you and everything down there. Just because to me, I mean, we love the sport and we're fans of you know, like all of you guys that travel, you know, all over and fish all the different series and all that too, even though we love KBF, that's our thing. But, you know, we love watching all the other, you know, trails and, you know, because the more of it is, the better. And the more, to me, it promotes the whole sport across the board. And it's fun to do that. But Jeremy, you actually had a question about pro tournaments, didn't you?
Yeah, basically, what advice would you give somebody fishing their first pro event.
When you say pro, are you referring to
Like a
a
trail event or something on that upper level?
Yeah,
so
the
like
upper
the
level.
okay, so like the national, like kind of the Hobie
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, like that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, the same advice I'd say to don't take it too seriously, just because it's a lot of people look at those big trails like this is the elite. It's still an open, and a lot of people. I mean, a couple of years ago, we had 9 women that fished the first Hobie event down on. Yeah, it was like myself and maybe one other, and 9 of those ladies that took that are signed up for this huge tournament in Florida. And I know they were nervous, and every member that it's still an open format. There's a lot of good people fishing it, but every sorts of skill levels, and that's where you get better, I believe, is fishing those tournaments. But again, be patient with yourself. Know it's just an open style tournament. We're all here, we have bad ones, and again, just enjoy it. They're a lot of fun. You can meet.
Right.
It's so funny because it's we even talk about that. It's like the first time I met you after day one of going out and throwing up that fat and nothing burger, and not even knowing that you had the day that you had until after seeing your videos later. For you to sit there and kind of help just talk me into just relaxing, going fishing, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, she's probably out here just slaying them, doing whatever. No clue that you've got electronics problem and you're just having to deal with, day one fishing on your level. Yeah, you take a couple of minutes just to kind of settle me down and just tell me to go fish the next day. And it turns everything around where I end up squeaking in and making it into the 100 after a hell of a turnaround on day 2. And not even me realizing that you had the day that you had, but, still take the time to just, talk to Gramps and help him out. And he's just, running around. that was to me. And it hit me even more after I got back home. It's like she had that kind of day and still took the time just to settle me down and just go fishing, have fun. And it made my day. I mean, that was just phenomenal.
I like hearing that, because I mean nothing to me. Of course I do that. That's for me. That's what it's all about. It's a day, but that's okay. I'll deal with that and process it. But if I can just help, those are going to happen. I have them too. I mean, my national championship was one of my worst performances of the year. And that's sometimes you don't ever want to have those bad ones on the big tournaments. But I've learned, so if I can help somebody else kind of get through it, just encourage them, because there's been so many early on when I needed it pretty bad. That's the least I can do is give it back.
Yeah. Now you were talking about the 9 ladies. Jeremy actually, his daughter, 17-year-old daughter Trish, actually left it. She had to go to work, but she actually had a question that she wanted her dad to throw at you tonight.
Yeah,
Sure.
she actually wrote this down. So
Okay.
she said, "How did you make it as a fisher girl when fishing is male dominant? What were some of the problems you faced as a woman that men just won't?"
Well, I think the biggest thing is the obvious one. Some of the challenges that women face, just for men, are challenges for women, and they're very different. And it's hard to understand if you haven't been in that situation. But the best I can describe it is you have to feel like you need to prove yourself, or that is on your own, because nobody's really used to seeing women
Oh, her signal's dying out on her. I can see it on her stream, so we'll give her a second to see if she reconnects back up. But showing that she's got low signal where she's at now. So Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So we're up there. She is.
Go. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Get her back in here. There we go. Yeah, we know cell signal fades when you're on the road, so we get it.
Oh yeah, yeah. God. Well, yeah. Since I have 2 bars. Okay, there we go. That just that stereotype. It was hard, very hard to overcome. I think a lot of grown men would really struggle if they were questioned that every single day, like every
Yep.
single tournament. A lot of guys
Right.
wouldn't be able to handle that, and I deal with it all day, and that's hard. But at the same time, here's the cool part about that: to rewrite that narrative and change the stereotype and be a part of this forward that are, I mean, changing the world. So when there's something that's like an anomaly and usually doesn't happen, defy all of those odds and get the opportunity to do that, it's pretty incredible. So I keep going, and only that, the messages and others out there, just the fact that just seeing me do it tells them that they can do it too.
Yeah,
and I love that because. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I actually use your videos as ways to encourage my daughter because you're like a role model, and I found that really amazing. It's like I'll never forget in that video that you put out where you hurt your foot and on Darnell, but a boat pulls up that morning and basically cuts you off, and then when you ask them, "Are you in a tournament?" they said, "No, are you?" And I guess one of the guys said something about what, just because she's a woman or something like that.
Yeah.
And it stuck in my head, like how many times you would have to hear that. But then the other thing I
about
noticed,
every time.
I figured, but one thing in watching all your videos, you have this tenacity where when things aren't going your way, you have this ability to like change something in your thinking or focus back. And I've seen this in several videos where it's obviously you were hurt, your foot was hurting, you had all these things going on, but that next morning you were like, just I can't even describe it, but that is something that I learned from you, that I need to be able to switch my mindset and how I think when I'm on the water having a bad day, and then refocus and go out and just do it. So that just stuck out in my head.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's so important when you have control of our attitude, and that's like the only thing that we can control out there on the water. I've learned that fish, the weather, things happen, your electronics, your equipment. The only thing that we get to our attitude and our mindset. So I think, that's one thing that I try to really, really.
Well, that's
Now,
made a big difference. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
So Ryan from RGM Fishtails wanted to know if you plan on fishing competitively until you can't do it anymore, or do you have like certain goals you want to get to, and then you have other things that you want to do for the rest of your life as well?
Well, I think a lot about that. I've had, there's always, of course, this dream in the back of the boat, fish in the opens, trying to make the elites one day, or fish the Bassmaster Class, lofty goals. But I jumped in a couple Bass Opens 2 years ago as a co-angler, just enjoyed it. I hope and pray that I always get to fish, but I am gonna try to listen to the good Lord above, where He wants me to go. Right, fishing for whatever reason. I'm thankful for that because I love it. But it's hard. It really is. There's a lot of challenges that people don't see with that, and I'm playing. And I love every aspect of my life. It gets pretty top chaos, but I think that I think myself staying in the fishing world for a long time. I'm not a huge fan of social media and step away from all of that and be able to make a living without social media. But yeah, I think I'll always have a career with fishing, good.
Yeah. And it's funny because a buddy of mine, Joe, one of the a Marine Corps veteran that I met when we were down there, kind of following up on that, he says, "What's your go-to moment or your reminder for motivation that keeps your kind of head in the game when you really need it? Is there something specific that you kind of like? I need to reset, refocus. Is there like a memory or something that you go to that's like your calming moment so that you can get back to work?"
It's kind of a faith thing for me. If I'm kind of spinning out, I literally just I kind of just get quiet, take a moment and pray. If that's your thing, great. If it's not, that's okay too. But for me,
I understand
that just
100%.
really help center me. That's what I get, and I tell you, I single time, and I know what I have to do, and it just and you know what? It doesn't always mean that I catch fish, right? But that pressure and that tightness in my chest is gone, and I just feel okay. I'm here in this moment, and and regardless of what happens out there, I've got a good attitude about it because of it.
Now, I was going to play off with another question off of Jeremy's daughter's question, but it's still the fact still remains you're the first woman to win a major national bass tournament, and you're the first, and you get to keep that with you forever. But outside of, okay, I'm a lady and I did this, what's it like to win like a tournament of champions? You and every hammer that rolls around in a kayak, and you put the smack down, and you finally hit that I am a grand champion, let alone qualifying for the Hobie Worlds and all the other.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one. You're the one hoisting the trophy. How was that?
It was pretty surreal. Pretty dang surreal. I remember that moment because I didn't have that great of a practice, and but my head and I fished fishing so good because I think it almost have a spectacular practice because then there's no pressure at all. Very relaxed, just thinking, I didn't have a great practice. I'm probably not in contention for this little bit, and lo and behold, I just started my decision making, and my fishing was at its peak for that tournament, and it showed. Go ahead.
So it made me wonder because somebody else kind of asked this question, and I kind of know because I kind of read up on the bio too. But when you're on the water, you're in third place going into day 3, and you've got a shot. Catch your limit, and then see what can happen from there. And that plays into this question where'd it go? That Randall Kaiser sent in, and so this plays in perfectly to that question. Day 3, I got my 5. I need to catch a kicker, give myself a shot. And his question was, what's your go-to bait for extremely pressured lakes? And then what are you throwing it on? So when you're in that situation, you need an upgrade. What are you picking up? And what do you have confidence that's going to be the thing?
Well, so is fishing for a kicker fish, or is it my confidence bait when things get really, really tough and I need just to get bit?
Well, I would say go for both, but I'm sitting here thinking of your last day. You've got your limit. You need an upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
What's your go-to bait for trying to get that upgrade that you needed to win that championship?
Well, typically it is like a weightless fluke style bait or a weightless general with there's a twist on that though. I screw in a little gold collar and we'll sometimes throw like a 16th ounce get tight. So it's just as a tiny bit of weight, that, or I'll do it weightless and I'll screw in that gold collar. That does. I mean, I feel like when things are really, really, really tough, I mean, really, really tough, I catch fish on it. And yeah, I've caught a lot of big fish on it. I would say for it, if it gets tough and I just need to catch fish, that's what I'm always going to pull. If I'm going for that kicker bite, I fish very, very differently for a bit. I'll usually pull out the flipping jig or like a big top one, or I do this thing where I for a big bite rig and put like a creature bait with a lot of action, whether that be like several different companies that make them, but just a lot of movement in a creature bait, and I'll essentially make it like a jig, and I fish that a couple different ways. Those are kind of my big fish go-tos. That's that stick bait, that Berkeley General with that little Colorado blade that I screw in. Money.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you what, because I think something I noticed that everybody loves when they watch your video is how you skip those baits all the way back in the stuff. I mean, I don't know how many times I'll sit there and replay that. I love skipping. That's one of my favorite things to do. I'll skip jigs. I'll skip chatterbaits. I don't care. So anybody else who loves it, I love watching, just see how far back in there you can get it, just because. And then the next thing you know, you hear the giant. Yep. Gee, it's a giant.
Yeah, I get it.
Now, do you fish a lot of spinning gear, or do you mix it up just based on what your technique is? Do you have, I know some people prefer, they wouldn't throw a sissy stick for their life, depending on it. And I know some people that have, and then you have some people I know, I mean, especially in kayak fishing, it's all spinning gear because that's just what they're used to, they're comfortable with. I know I have a mix of both, but do you just kind of depend?
It depends on situation for me, for sure. I mostly use casting rods because my normal rotation can bait a swim jig, a flipping jig, punch and rig, a chatterbait, like a lipless crank. I'm a shallow water power fisherman, so most of the time casting rods, like for reference, I'll usually take about 12 casting, maybe 2 spinning rods. But I do pull out that spinning rod in situations where most people would use a casting rod simply be like that reason. Fishing a fluke in super shallow, super heavy cover with a heavier spinning rod on straight braid, because I can cast so much more quiet and further, and I can better than I can a bait caster. So now, there are occasions where I use.
Now, are you a big straight fluorocarbon, or do you have to go braid the leader?
I'm straight. I do straight fluoro, except for a couple things like my lipless crank bait. Obviously, all top waters and frogs, I do braid, straight braid. Yep. I don't like. There's a lot of science and good reasoning behind tying a leader. Just don't like that. So it's just personal preference, honestly.
I'm the same way. I know. Well, you got to learn the FG knot if you want to be a. I ain't got time for all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do it on some things because of my old eyes. If I'm throwing like a real finessey, I'll throw like some high vis braid with a long leader. If I'm like drop shotting or something where I just have to see the line moving, where it's so light that my old ass is, I'm trying to that fish. No, yeah, but yeah, I'm like you. I just like to keep it simple. Braid when I need braid.
Yeah,
punching and frogs. Yeah, frog fishing, and fluorocarbon for everything else. That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, So we were talking about ladies of fishing. That leads me to my next thing. You were recently named the KBF Fishing with Gramps Community Champ for some very special that you did when you were down at I think it was the Pan Am Games. Can you, for those who are, not big, they haven't started following you yet, even though I'm sure everybody on the internet knows Christine Fisher, but again, when you get such a prestigious award like this, tell us the details and circumstances about how you came to give a special gift to somebody right before Christmas. That was just the coolest. Again, you hit me in the feels, and I was like, "Oh, we got to talk about this."
It's kind of hard for me because I really, to be honest, to get out there, and then it got shared, and I was like, well, okay, because I didn't feel like I deserved any extra credit for it or any extra, press doing what I think anybody would have done in that situation to do. So I don't know. I felt a little uncomfortable with all that at first, but I guess if it helps, people kind of inspire them to do it. I'll talk about. We were down in Mexico competing for the Pan Am, and it was having a really great time. One of the Mexican athletes, Carla, was meeting everybody. She was in second place on day one, away from doing really, 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 really well on the second day. She came up had good quality. She caught like an 8-pounder down there. I was impressed with her fishing ability, and I had a pretty bad, unfortunately. So after day 2, I went up to our hotel. I was laying down over my head. I was just struggling, and Guillermo came in to talk to me and check. He's like, "Hey, Carla she's Spanish. He was able to communicate with her because a lot of the Mexicans didn't speak English. Carla was telling me, asking if I had I could help her kind of learn how to talk to some companies and try to. They're just in desperate need of a kayak and this, and I was very just like not feeling very good, and immediately I said, and I really think it was the Holy Spirit. I swear, because it was just I was so came as clear as day. You give her your kayak. Yeah, I want to give her my kayak. And Guillermo was like, what? And I said, yeah, that's what I want to do. That way she has one. And he was just like, are you sure? And I was like, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. What I want to do. Now let me put the covers back over my head so I can rest up here. We'll figure it out in a minute. Yeah, because she didn't have a kayak of her own. She was borrowing one, had no electronic. I went and told the team. I said, hey guys, this is what I want to do. Can you all help me get this kayak ready and help me carry it over here? I want to do this and get her a kayak. And so everyone was really excited. They asked, they were starting to take off my garment, and I was just like, no, let's give her the electronics too. So at the awards, I had Guillermo help me write it down in Spanish and practice saying it. So I basically how much of an honor it was to compete against her, how inspired I was by her ability, and how it just kind of blew me away. And I said that this sport has given so much to me, which it has. And I heard that she was in need of a new kayak so that she could keep. And I said, so I wanted to gift her mine. And I said, I hope I hope that it serves you as well as I know that you're going to serve it. God bless. I said in Spanish to her. And it was just, it was crazy. I mean, everybody's husband was bawling, her kids were bawling, she was bawling, I was crying, our team crying. I mean, it was just one of those incredible moments. And the most important wasn't me doing that. I was just doing what I was supposed to do. I don't, she was more than deserving, and it was just the right thing to do at that time. And I was just so thankful that I had the opportunity to be able to give her that.
It's funny because it's, the path, and the reason why I really, that story hit, because I ran into something similar right before that, where I've got a kayak sitting out here hanging on the wall. It's one that the kids used to fish out of before I started getting too big to fit in little kayaks. And but it's one I've always kept for taking the kids. I call my kids. They're the oldest one's 30, the youngest one's 23 now. But when I would take them out, I always had my original fishing kayak, and it's just hanging out here on the wall doing nothing. And I was like, I need room in my garage. I need to give this away or do something. And so I actually did that with one of my buddies here on YouTube. I was like, hey, bro, you're out there bank fishing. You're always in the chat. You're, here supporting the Gramps fam, and everything. So I said, look, I'm going to give you this kayak. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to connect at the Indy Boat Sport and Travel Show here coming up in, I think
that's
it's
so
5 or 6
cool.
weeks or something like that. But, it's nothing fancy. But I was like, dude, I know that you will just love this thing and put it to work. He's big into, he was one of the guys in the fishing fam, a bunch of his fish to Catch 22, last year to raise money for, our friends over at Mission 22. And, across the KBF world, we raised like $5,000 for that, just doing the little, Catch 22 fishing challenge. But I love being able to put my, now that I'm even blessed to say, I've got a spare kayak here, take this.
Right.
And, get on the water and, fish for it for a while. If you take it and you sell it, and that gets you into something a little better down the road. Chad kind of gets me, because when we started, when we all hooked up at the Veterans Day kind of get together, he needed to surround himself with some people who kind of understood that kind of life, the life. And so me, Jeremy, and Matt, the Freedom Squad, as you met us at the thing, we went down there and met up with him and kind of changed headspace. And out of that, I think it's funny because we took the Catch 22 into something else where KBF is going to be fun. There's going to be a fun side to KBF now with the whole Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series. And so that's going to be like a whole thing where people can fish, $15 entry for a month-long thing, so that they can, try to work their way up to fish on one of the YouTuber teams. And then we're going to meet down at the bass fishing headquarters, the KBF headquarters on Veterans Day again, and fishing what we call the Hero Cup. So KBF is going to have the pro side, but it's also going to have our recreational fun side. So you'll hear and see a lot of us posting about all that too. But I did get one final question from a lady angler on Instagram, and this one was from Suzanne Pete Maggie, and she wants to know, is KRISTINE interested in doing the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series? In other words, would you like to have an invitation put out there where people could sign up and basically fish to work their way onto a Team KRISTINE Fisher YouTuber team? And then if you're available on Veterans Day to show up down at Gunnersville or Wheeler, we're going to be fishing on both, I think, out of the KBF headquarters. And, there's a lot of people that want to know, is KRISTINE, would she be interested to join? Because Fluke Master's going to have a team. Chad's going to have a team. Wendell Fishing's going to have a team. Alex Rudd, Creek Fishing Adventures. And then he's got somebody, I think, from the UFC who's going to be coming in and having a team as well. But we wanted to see if you would be interested. And, of course, I know you're busy this year. You got a lot of planning to do. But if that's something that you're interested in, we'd sure love to have you, because we're going to be fundraising for some, other veteran stuff. And, taking the money that's going to come in from it is going to, you know, a lot of it is going to be so we can buy prizes to give back to the people who, Clay Gouda, I'm not a UFC guy. Clay Gouda is one of the guys that's going to be having a team as well. But I was asked if, you know, we would throw an invitation out there if you would like to join us as well, since it's like a whole YouTuber fun side, still a little bit tournament-y, but, you know, we're all going to be having all these teams, and then we're going to be out there hammering it out on Veterans Day weekend for the Hero Cup. But the cash prize, it actually goes out to the 4 people that qualified to fish on your team. So we wanted to throw that out there. You know, think about it sometime this year. And if you want to get in and play too, be for a good cause, but it should be some fun too. And a little trash talking and, you know, all the other stuff that goes on with it.
Chad actually put up 10,000 for the tournament. And that'll be split before the 4 team members. And so I thought that was pretty cool.
That is.
But we're all working with various sponsors. Yeah, we're all working with various sponsors. So I'm going to work with Old Town to get a kayak, and if I'll buy one at my cost, and, you know, give it away to somebody who's fishing for Team Gramps. You know, but we're all working with all the various people too, so we can have a lot of cool prizes. We're working on using this. It's kind of like a baby version. It's not so much the state challenge, but it's kind of in that format so that people can get, you know, maybe get into tournament fishing a little bit. But it's more of a challenge. It's a fun thing. You can win a lot of awesome prizes and stuff. So we think it's going to be really awesome. It takes the pressure off, but it should be fun too. And then, you know, gives all the YouTubers another reason to smack talk each other on the socials too.
Yeah, that sounds pretty neat. I'll have to, my schedule's for a while, but I'll have to definitely check that out. It sounds like a really cool concept.
Yeah, we think it'll be fun. It'll be a good way to get more, as he puts it, butts and boats. But also we do a lot of this stuff. When I say we, me, Jeremy, Matt, and other veterans are using this as another way of veteran recreational therapy, gives somebody a little competitive edge. So boys and girls can talk smack to each other as they're fishing, you know, month to month to month. The cool thing is, you know, you would have a team out there, but you wouldn't really have to do much until actually Veterans Day came. So it would be all about that, you know, talk about it and all that stuff too. But we can kind of school you up on what we're doing, but we think it's going to be a really good concept for getting a little bit of tournament derb type stuff in, you know, on a monthly kind of state challenge type way to do it. But for us, it's a good way to fundraise, have some fun, get a lot of cool prizes for a lot of people, and introduce people into, you know, getting them out there in a kayak and having a little fun too.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
We think, I mean, we've had so much positive feedback. We think this is going to be really cool. Oh yeah. And Matt, OEF5 is going to be bringing his smoker, and it's one of these big, him and his wife smoke for like one of the local college football teams. So they're used to actually doing really good stuff at a really high level. I mean, it's pretty cool. So while y'all were living, you know, in the hotels and doing everything down at the KBFNC, me and Jeremy were living high on the hog because he was smoking chickens and brats and all kinds of.
Oh wow!
You know,
we ate good.
We had a good old time.
Wow.
There's a reason we weren't hitting the water till about 8 o'clock after everybody else had been on the water for 2 hours. We were eating good in the neighborhood, that's for sure. All right. Well, it has been an hour, and I know you are going to be a busy lady. So, what's your first tournament of the year? And how much time are you going to try to prepare for getting ready for it?
Well, I'm either going to do the game, but if I did that, I wouldn't get to really practice at all because I fly out Monday and don't get back till Friday for a deal with Yeti in Louisiana. Fish that tournament or not yet, but if I don't fish that one, it'll be the Hobie on the Harris chain down in Florida. 4 days or so probably practice for that one.
Nice.
Awesome.
Florida this time of year has to be pretty cool. I went to Florida one time in my life, and it was Christmas weekend, and it was 30 degrees.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I caught one fish behind Bass Pro Shops.
That's kind of cool though.
I can say I went to Florida and didn't get skunked. I
There
plan
you
on making
go.
a return trip.
Yeah, you need to get that. That's a really cool place to fish.
Oh yeah. We have plans to get out and travel more. I've been so busy working and everything over the last few years, but now that the other stuff that's going on in the world has settled down and we can get out and move around and have fun again, I can't wait. What is the biggest bass that you've ever caught?
11 pounds, 8 ounces down in Florida.
Yeah, nice. Jeremy, what was yours? I know you caught one in Texas.
11.62 on fork.
Yeah.
But
That's a
that
big
wasn't
one
in
on
a kayak.
fork.
That was on my nitro.
Yeah.
Hey, it still
Yeah, I
counts.
think my biggest ever was
It's-
down. We were bank fishing on fork, weren't we?
Yep, off one of
That's
the
when I caught it.
bridges.
Yeah, I was fishing there. I don't know, one of the bridges, and I caught an 8-pounder, and I haven't touched that. That was in 1990 something. So I'd like to go
Wow.
travel again and try to find another. I'd like to find a double digit someday, but wouldn't we all? What is the one remaining body of water on your bucket list that you haven't fished that you still have in mind?
Huh. Probably the St. Lawrence River.
Huh.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting.
Smallmouth too, but I've heard this is kind of a sleeper, but I've heard it has incredible. But I probably fish for smallmouth a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we're going to do this year that we haven't done in years is get out and chase some smallmouth. We we're only 5 hours from St. Clair, and neither one of us have driven up there yet. But there's some actually
That's my
decent smallie fishing up
favorite.
in. Yeah, so that's we're just going to start. We've just like I said, we've been stuck in this little honey hole and we've enjoyed it. But now that we kind of got into doing this stuff and playing around on YouTube and really wanting to go out and meet more people and hang out in different places, it's kind of inspired us just to go and kind of show show people what it's like just to get out and have fun and fish in different places too.
There you go.
Jeremy, you got any other
That's what it's
questions you wanted to ask tonight?
I was just curious about your most memorable day on the water. Just whatever that means to you, the most memorable day you've had.
Honestly, it was probably calling my grandpa during the TRC. That sticks out. Probably more than anything. Catching 5 muskie in 2 hours on Lake St. Clair on the worst weather day of the year, but that was pretty cool too.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Cool.
All right, my lady. Well, I tell you what, it has been fun. It has been a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight.
You bet. Thank you
Can't
guys
wait to see. I
so
can't wait
much
to
for
see you
having
again
me.
too, because I want to see you hoisting up one of those trophies in person, again. But still, again, even outside of all of that, if we could hook up with you one day and just hit the water somewhere and just go fish, that would be awesome too.
Absolutely. We'll make that
And if
happen.
you're ever up in Indiana with a couple of free days, let me know. And we'll go find some fish somewhere. That is for sure.
I will probably take you guys up.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we will let you go. And thanks again. Once again, thanks for everybody popping in the chat and all the questions everybody shot in from Instagram. Man, I can't thank you enough. And again, remember always get outside when you can. Make some memories, one cast at a time.